kufanya mambo yafuatayo kwa kutumia na vyombo vyetu pia. Tulichukua sample za mbuzi, tukachukua sample za kondoo, tukachukua sample za papai, tukachukua sample za oili ya gari, sample za vitu vingine mbalimbali, tukavipeleka pale kwenye maabara bila wao kujua, na tukazipa majina. Sample ya oili kwa mfano iliyotoka kwa gari tulilipa jina ya Jabiri Hamza mwenye miaka 30. Ile ilileta negative. Tulipopeleka sample ya fenesi ambalo tuliipa jina la Sara Samuel miaka 45 female, matokeo yake yalikuwa unconclusive. Tulipopeleka sample ya papai tukaipa jina Elizabeth Anne miaka 26 female, papai lile lilikuwa positive kwamba lina corona. Maana yake maji mle ndani zilizotolewa mle kwenye papai ni positive. Sample ya ndege kware imekuwa positive. Tumepeleka ikawa determinant. Tumechukua mbuzi akawa positive. Tukachukua kondoo akawa negative, na kadhalika na kadhalika.
Hello and welcome to another day in paradise, and welcome to another edition of the Unapologetic Negropian. In today's video, unfortunately, we have some bad news. The president of Tanzania, the bulldozer, John Magufuli, has passed away at the age of 61. Official reports say that he died from heart complications. However, there are a number of different rumors going around that he had COVID-19. This has come as a massive disappointment to the 84% of Tanzanians that voted for him in the last elections. However, it also comes as a massive disappointment to many diasporans who were planning to move to Tanzania because of the stable climate that Magufuli brought to the country. In fact, many diasporans were planning to move to Tanzania because he was the president. However, once again, there are rumors going around saying that the president was assassinated because of his views against the vaccine for COVID-19. How poetic this would be for him to pass away from COVID-19, the very virus that he had long turned a blind eye to. Is there any truth in President John Magufuli's death being an assassination? Well, we're going to try to attempt to answer this question right now. But first, I'm going to ask you to please like, subscribe, share, click the bell notification, and please consider supporting the channel on our Patreon, link in the description. President John Magufuli came into power back in 2015. He came in on the moniker of kicking out corruption and government waste. He wasn't one of those presidents that came into office after leading a campaign talking about kicking out corruption, kicking out government waste, and then getting into office and doing the exact same thing. No, he actually kept his promise, and he was very transparent about it, which is the reason why many people loved him. He brought stability to Tanzania, and he made Tanzania an East African economic superpower. This made Tanzania an attractive proposition for many diasporans who were looking to move back to Africa and to find a new life. Many diasporans, especially African Americans, see East Africa as being the new promised land, and with more floggers turning their attention to Tanzania, many people are now starting to look away from Ghana as being the number one choice and are now looking to Tanzania. However, over the last 12 months, President Magufuli has been more known for his stance against COVID and the vaccine. When the pandemic, back in early 2020, when this pandemic went global, he was one of the only presidents that didn't believe the hype. He didn't believe the hype which was being generated by the mainstream media. But President John Magufuli didn't take to the COVID hype like the other African leaders. He wasn't held down by the West. He wasn't the type of person to give in to the West. He was a true Pan-Africanist at heart. President John Magufuli was a man of his word, and he did not bend to Western pressure. What did President John Magufuli know that we didn't? At the time, he knew that this vaccine hadn't been properly tested. We know this now because you've seen the results of these vaccines. You've seen some of the adverse effects some of the test participants have had since taking the vaccine. The World Health Organization were stunned when they were rejected by President Magufuli and went about trying to slander his name and also inflate the numbers of people with COVID inside Tanzania.
Starting with the specifics of the test kits referenced in Tanzania, we are convinced that the tests that have been provided and that are on the international market were provided both on procurement through WHO, those that came through the JACMA donations, are not contaminated with the virus.
You can actually see for yourself there was a sharp increase in the number of people that had COVID in May 2020. It went from somewhere like 17 to 430. President Magufuli stood his ground and educated his people on why the vaccine was so dangerous. He went into coalition with President Andre Rajoelina of Madagascar, finding a remedy, a natural African-made remedy in Madagascar which would help cure the virus. The World Health Organization, of course, was very quick to put down this remedy, even though the Chinese also had their own traditional Chinese herbs and remedies that they were trying to push onto the World Health Organization. But the World Health Organization didn't say anything about the Chinese traditional Chinese remedies. They only focused on Tanzania. What the World Health Organization was afraid of was the president's stance would be replicated across the continent, and losing out on 54 countries on one continent would be disastrous for their masters like Pfizer and AkzoNobel, who are producing the vaccine. Both promoted this miracle cure called CVO Tambav, which came in the form of a drink. Many other African leaders saw this as a great alternative to welcoming in a foreign-made vaccine from either China or Europe. So clearly the World Health Organization was extremely worried, and these conglomerates, these massive multi-billion-dollar pharmaceutical companies wanted to make sure that there was a universal application of their vaccines across the world. One of two things had to happen. Either President Magufuli would accept that he was wrong, which he was never going to do, or they had to get rid of him. So is there any clear evidence that the president was assassinated by the powers that be? All we can say is this: Africa is worth hundreds of billions of dollars to these organizations who know that Africa couldn't pay for it. They know that most African nations could not pay for this vaccine, but they know they had to get the vaccine on these people because they know that these African countries will just turn around and ask the Europeans or ask the Americans or ask the Chinese for the money for these vaccines. This is a very easy way for these governments to rob the public purse, push it into Africa, and then take that money back out of Africa with a fraction gone off there, of course, from corruption, and then put it back into the pockets of the personal investors in these pharmaceutical companies. So for the pharmaceutical companies, Africa was just too big to fail. They needed them on their side, not just some of them, but all of them. Now, Tanzania wasn't the only country to speak up against the COVID vaccine. However, they were the only country that were doing extremely well at the time, like they are now. They are doing very well financially. they have strong growth, people are happy, things are going well for them. The other countries that you see speaking out against the COVID vaccine, countries like Guinea-Bissau and Equatorial Guinea, these countries are in turmoil. The pharmaceutical companies aren't that fussed about them, but Tanzania is a big one and they needed them on their side. Now we are well aware that the Westerners will come in and replace presidents in Africa at their will. They've been doing it for decades and decades, and we seem to be unable to stop them. And this is not just a conspiracy theory. They've been open about this. They've spoken about this. If you've read the book, The Confessions of an Economic Hitman, he is open about the way they will take these African leaders and do as they will with them. They have them on a string. This is how Africa has remained under the control of the colonialists for all this time. So for me, although there is no physical evidence to suggest that any of these organizations had a hand in the death of President Magufuli, for me there is just too much coincidental circumstances in order to just ignore the fact that he was one of the most vocal presidents, outspoken against the actual vaccine itself. Okay, he may have played down the actual virus, many presidents did in Africa, but he was a person that said absolutely no to this vaccine, took an option to give his people another choice other than the vaccine. So what must the residents of Tanzania do now? Well, I think first off, they need to keep a very keen eye on who takes up that vacuum of power that has been left by the passing on of the president. Who is planning to take that place? Who has got the most financial backing, and what he plans to do in terms of the vaccine? This could actually answer the question on whether the president died of natural causes or whether he was slain. Secondly, they must continue on course and listen to the dead president's last words. They must focus on his last words and continue doing what they were doing, because they're doing fine. They are doing more than fine using this CVO drink, the African-made remedy, which I would use. I would definitely use this if I could get a hold of this over here in Europe. I'd definitely use it. I would never touch the vaccine that they are having here. So my point of view is that he was definitely slain. That's just my point of view. I'm just a YouTuber. I'm nobody important, but I cannot ignore the set of circumstances in which he has died in. The people of Tanzania should be very angry about this, and they need to keep an eye on who now takes control of the country. A message to the people that have moved to Tanzania, the diasporans, they also need to be careful, because normally when you see a vacuum of power being left by a president in that way, then a lot of things can happen in a country, especially in an African country. It rarely goes well when an African leader comes out of the office early and say to those diasporans who have moved to Africa, please be careful. This is not going to end well. It's not going to end peacefully, I would say. And I really hope I am wrong on this one. I hope I am wrong. So what are your thoughts on this? Do you think that the president of Tanzania was slain, or do you think it was just a victim of his own circumstances? Do you think he died of COVID, or do you think he died of heart complications like they said? Please leave a comment in the comment section. It'd be really good to hear from you. My email is now back up and running, guys, so thank you very much for being patient. That's all I've got time for today. I'd like to say thank you for watching. Thank you for subscribing. I'd like to give an extra special thank you to my Patreons, and I will see you in the next one. Until the next time, please think twice. Ta-ra a bit.